Of the story this morning, Joy Wang is at the alert desk with a rundown of Abrego Garcia's background.
But let's start things off with reporter John Gonzalez, who's live outside federal court in Greenbelt, Maryland, where, John, there's going to be a hearing on this topic later today.
That's right, and we'll see how much pull this hearing will have with this case because, boy, those words sent shockwaves from the White House yesterday. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele saying that he will not release Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man who was mistakenly deported to that federal prison, to that gang prison in El Salvador, even describing Abrego Garcia as a terrorist. Now, President Trump's top advisors have also stated that they have no basis for the Central American nation to return Abrego Garcia. So what happens next? Well, we know that later this afternoon, a federal judge here at the U.S. District Courthouse in Greenbelt will hold a hearing taking up the case. But there is a strong possibility that the Prince George's County father and husband may never return. I spoke with a senior policy analyst for the immigration team at the Center for American Progress. She's afraid that without due process in cases like this, it leaves legal residents vulnerable, and many should be very concerned.
President Trump has done this with Putin, where he has swapped prisoners in exchange for others. So Trump has the power to make this call and ask for his return. There is no reason why these two presidents are saying that they can return him when we've seen it done before.
Now, a senior immigration and customs enforcement official said in a sworn statement that Abrego Garcia, quote, is no longer eligible for withholding of removal, unquote, because of the Trump administration's claim that he was once a member of the MS-13 gang, even though no evidence of that has surfaced. Coming up later this hour, what Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland is planning to do. He says he'll even travel to El Salvador. Reporting live, John Gonzalez, 7 News.
Well, 7 News, we've been covering this story for weeks. Just look at all the articles we have on our homepage already. This one saying that he was mistakenly deported and that he's alive and secure. Another one talking to an immigration analyst about due process, as well as this latest story about the Salvadoran president saying that he won't be releasing him. And we're also learning more about Garcia's case. Court records state that he's been living in the United States for about 14 years. Along with it, we're also learning more about what's next. We're told it is not the first time he's accused of being a gang member. In fact, police questioned him in Maryland about it in 2019. Garcia said he wasn't and was eventually granted a withholding of removal status, preventing his deportation to El Salvador. Then on March 12th, he was stopped by ICE agents who wrongfully told him his status had changed. According to court documents, Justice Department attorneys have said he was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error.
Well, just outside the White House yesterday, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's family and supporters, as you see here, gathered there to pray for his return. Leaders of the immigrant advocacy group CASA, they are vowing to fight on despite this setback in bringing him home back to Maryland. Garcia's case is also the topic of our online poll this morning. You can scan the QR code on your screen to weigh in. The question here is, should a president have the final say in the fate of a deported person? The majority of you, 60%, say no. We'll check in on the results again in our next half hour.
The president of El Salvador says it's preposterous for him to return an illegal alien who was deported to his country. Meantime, the Supreme Court says the Trump administration can use the Alien Enemies Act to deport transnational gang members to that prison in El Salvador, as it also called on the administration to facilitate the return of the illegal alien deported there. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and joining us now to discuss all of this is the former superintendent of the Chicago PD and retired special agent in charge of the FBI, Jody Weiss. Good morning to you, sir. Welcome back to the National News Desk.
Morning.
First, there's been a lot of questions about illegal aliens identified as MS-13 or Trinidad Aragua members and then transported to this prison in El Salvador. There's questions whether they are gang members. Some lawmakers have said, though, they are still here in America illegally. Why would that matter?
Well, personally, I don't think it should matter. I think if you entered the country illegally, you need to go. But the designation of gangs is actually important. Number one, the president classified Trinidad Aragua and MS-13 as foreign terrorist organization. That gives law enforcement additional tools and resources to identify, to disrupt, to dismantle these groups. Now, number two, it's just the sheer volume of these people that have come in illegally. So ICE says, let's focus on the gang members. If you look at any major city in the United States, Jan, if any uptick in violence, it can be attributed to gang violence. So let's get the worst of the worst out. Go after the gang members, get them out of the country, and you can prioritize and start whittling down this massive amount of illegal folks that have come in.
Right. Shows ICE is taking this prudent approach to this massive deportation operation, as you said. So how does law enforcement determine gang membership?
Well, it's going to be definitely a multi-factor approach. Some is very easy. Some of these gang members are very proud to be gang members. They will admit to that. Officers are going to look and they're going to see symbols and tattoos on them. They'll get information from informants, like what happened in Abrego Garcia's information. But what's really great is the technology that's out there right now. You think of all the information that can come into a police department: arrests, complaints, field interviews, electronic surveillance, physical surveillance, commercial data sets like LexisNexis, and let's not forget social media. So with all this information that comes in, how do you make use of that? Fortunately, there's technology out there that'll start sifting through this and look at like 4 key points: people, objects, locations, and events. And it can just show the relationships of individuals in gangs immediately. So determining an organization now is much easier than it was when I was doing these type of cases, but it really helps out. But it really can link and show the officers who are in the gang members and get them out of the country.
So this is very high tech. Is there a gang database?
Usually every organization will have one. If you recall, in Chicago, the Crime Commission actually put out a gang book on a regular basis. So you have this data that you can sift in through. But linking that all together is where the technology comes in and saves the investigators just weeks and weeks of works, sifting through cases, trying to draw those comparisons, going through phone data, going through social media information. Now you've got equipment that can help you and do it for you.
In the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, we know this DOJ lawyer who said his removal was a mistake has since been fired. His attorneys, all these Democratic lawmakers coming out saying he was not a member of MS-13 and he should not have been deported without due process. The administration says he was the right person sent to the right place. Jody, you point to a judge's ruling in 2019 from an immigration court that stated he had a gang affiliation because of the fear of retaliation from a rival gang. Can you explain this for us?
Yeah, Jen, that's what the left is hanging their hat on, this order in 2019. But keep in mind, the new administration in El Salvador has wiped out gangs. So all this threat from gangs in El Salvador doesn't really exist. But let's look at the facts. Number one, he's been determined to be an MS-13 member. A court in 2019 actually denied him bond because they found that he was an MS-13. He was here illegally. He's a citizen of El Salvador. So when he wasn't really deported, you could make the argument he was repatriated. So you have all those facts come on. Then you consider MS-13 as a terrorist organization. It just makes no sense to bring back. And after the president of El Salvador said there is no way he is sending a terrorist, an El Salvadorian citizen, back to the United States, I personally think this case is over with. But we're going to have to watch it because they're still screaming that they should bring back a gang member, a member of a terrorist organization who was here illegally to the United States, which defies all logic to me.
And also, why was this Barrios 18, this rival gang, why were they targeting him and his family? A lot of questions still in regards to this. And former superintendent of the Chicago PD and retired special agent in charge of the FBI, Jody Weiss, we appreciate you coming on and giving us some insight into this. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Jan.
Of course.
President Trump says he wants to deport American citizens convicted of crimes. He says it will help the prison population in the United States and save the country money. But there are massive questions about whether it's even legal. We get more now from ABC's Perry Russum.
In a live stream broadcast from inside the Oval Office, President Trump can be heard telling El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele he wants to send American citizens convicted of crimes to prison in El Salvador, as Trump calls them homegrowns.
I said, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's fair. All right? It's not big enough.
Bukele has taken in hundreds of migrants deported from the U.S. accused of being gang members, sending them here to this mega prison called Secad in exchange for millions of dollars. Trump mentioning the idea again minutes later to reporters as he sat down with his cabinet, including Attorney General Pam Bondi.
To Pam, I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country.
Trump says it would help with America's prison population. According to the Department of Justice, in 2022, there were more than 1.2 million people in prisons in the U.S. Trump's call to deport American criminals opens a trove of legal questions. Ultimately, whether Americans can be kicked out of their own country. Trump says sending criminals to El Salvador would save the U.S. money with what he calls great security.
We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem.
In a new interview with Fox Noticias, Trump is repeating calls to deport American criminals, saying we are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that. Perry Russum, ABC News, Washington.